He called me worthless. Not once, not twice. For years. He said I had no identity outside the kitchen. No talent, no future, no value. And the cruelest part? I believed him. Until the day he told me to leave before his boss came over. Until the day I quietly packed one suitcase. Until the day I became the woman he never thought I could be. And 3 years later, while he was sitting at his corporate desk, he turned on the television and saw my face on national news. My name is Emily Carter, and this is the day my life changed forever. I used to think marriage meant sacrifice. I used to think a good wife was supposed to stay quiet, stay useful, and stay invisible. That is what I did. I woke up early every morning before the sun was fully awake. I made coffee. I packed lunches. I cooked breakfast. I washed clothes. I cleaned the house. I remembered birthdays. I paid the bills when I could. I smiled when I was tired. I listened when he complained. I stayed calm when he was cruel. And through all of it, I kept telling myself one thing. He is under stress. He does not mean it. He will change. My husband, Daniel Carter, worked in corporate finance at a big company downtown. He wore expensive suits. He spoke in confident words. He shook hands with powerful people. And at home, he treated me like I was just part of the furniture. Not a wife. Not a partner. Just someone who kept the house running. The saddest thing was, I had once been somebody. Before marriage, I loved writing. I loved creating. I loved building things with words and ideas. I had studied digital content strategy in college. I used to dream about starting my own platform one day. A place where women could share their stories, their businesses, their voices. But after marriage, my dreams slowly got buried under dishes, diapers, laundry, and silence. Daniel didn't like when I talked about the past. Whenever I mentioned my old plans, he would smirk and say, "That was cute for your college days." Or, "Real life is different, Emily." Or worse, "You should be grateful I let you stay home." Let me tell you how deep humiliation can go. Sometimes, the person who hurts you the most does it in a calm voice, not screaming, not throwing things, just a quiet sentence that lands like a knife. That was Daniel. He knew exactly how to make me feel small without ever raising his voice. He never called me beautiful unless someone else was present. He never thanked me unless he wanted something. He never introduced me like I mattered. At parties, he would say, "This is my wife, Emily. She takes care of the house," as if that was all I was good for. And every time, I would stand there with a smile that felt glued to my face. I told myself I was being strong, but the truth is, I was disappearing. I still remember the day everything broke. It was a Thursday afternoon. The house was spotless. The laundry was folded. Dinner was almost ready. Daniel came home earlier than usual. He looked irritated the moment he walked in. I asked, "Is everything okay?" He loosened his tie and said, "My boss might come by later." I nodded. "Okay, I can set the table nicer. I can make the place look good." He looked at me like I had embarrassed him. Then he said the words I will never forget. "Emily, please stay out of sight tonight. I do not need him seeing my worthless housewife." Worthless housewife. Those 2 words hit harder than a slap. I stood there, frozen, in the kitchen. The spoon was still in my hand. The sauce was still simmering, and my heart felt like it had been dropped on the floor. I asked softly, "What did you just call me?" He barely looked at me. "You heard me. Don't make this dramatic. I'm trying to build something here. I need to look successful. Not like I'm struggling to take care of a woman who just cooks and cleans all day." I stared at him. All day. Just cooks and cleans. As if those things were nothing. As if holding a home together was nothing. as if loving someone enough to carry their life on your back was nothing. I remember looking around that kitchen and feeling something crack open inside me. For years, I had begged for respect in small ways. A kind word, a thank you, a little appreciation. And in one sentence, he had told me exactly what he thought of me. I was not his partner. I was his burden. I did not cry in front of him. That was the first quiet victory of that day. I simply turned off the stove, walked upstairs, and sat on the edge of our bed. Then I opened the old closet at the back. Buried under winter coats and old boxes was a suitcase I had not used in years. I looked at it for a long time. Then I started packing. Not my whole life. Just one suitcase, a few clothes, my laptop, a notebook, my college certificates, a folder of old writing samples I had almost forgotten existed. When Daniel came upstairs and saw me packing, he laughed. "What are you doing now?" I kept folding my clothes. He crossed his arms. "Emily, stop this. You are not going anywhere." I looked up at him, and for the first time in years, I did not lower my eyes. I said, "Watch me." He almost laughed again, but there was something in my voice that made him stop. He said, "You have nowhere to go." I zipped the suitcase shut and replied, "That is where you are wrong." I left that house before his boss arrived. I did not slam the door. I did not scream. I did not beg. I just walked out. And as I stood on the front steps with one suitcase in my hand, I realized something terrifying and beautiful at the same time. I was scared, but I was also free. I moved into a tiny one-bedroom apartment on the edge of the city. It was not pretty. The walls were thin. The sink dripped. The kitchen was smaller than my old pantry, but it was mine. The first night there, I sat on the floor because I had no couch yet. I ate takeout from a paper box, and I cried harder than I had in years. Not because I wanted Daniel back. I cried because I had stayed so long in a life where I forgot my own name. For the first few weeks, I felt like a ghost. I had no idea what to do with my quiet. At home, there had always been noise. Daniel's voice, the TV, the dishes, the demands. Now there was only me. And silence can be painful when you are not used to hearing yourself think. At first, I looked for simple jobs. I needed money. I needed stability. So, I worked part-time at a bookstore and did basic freelance editing in the evenings. But something strange happened. While sorting books, I found myself staring at the old writing section. While editing blog posts for clients, I remembered how much I loved shaping a message until it felt alive. Late at night, after work, I would sit by my tiny window and write. At first, it was just for me. I wrote thoughts, then essays, then stories. And then one night, I opened an old document from years ago. It was a rough idea I had once created in college. A platform for women who had been overlooked. Not a loud, glossy social media app. Not another fake inspirational site. Something more real. A digital space where women could share their skills, their business ideas, their struggles, and their wins. A place that connected stay-at-home mothers, single women, working women, widows, creators, and dreamers. A place built on dignity. I read that old idea and sat back in my chair. I had forgotten how much I cared about it. So I started working. Every night after my shift, I researched. I learned. I taught myself about design, user experience, online communities, and content systems. I watched tutorials until my eyes burned. I saved money for a better laptop. I rewrote my idea over and over again. I called it Her Voice, because that was what I wanted to give back to women. Their voice. Not 6 months past. Not 1 year. 3 full years of quiet work. 3 years of being underestimated. 3 years of eating cheap meals. 3 years of using public Wi-Fi. 3 years of failure after failure. There were nights I wanted to quit. There were mornings I stared at the wall and wondered if Daniel was right. There were moments when I had only one client and $2 in my account. But every time I thought about going back, I remembered that kitchen. I remembered that word, worthless. And I kept going. Then one small event changed everything. I posted a short story online about a woman rebuilding her life after being dismissed by everyone around her. I wrote it from the deepest part of my heart. I did not expect much, but within hours, thousands of women shared it. Then hundreds of thousands, then millions. People wrote to me and said, "This is my life. Thank you for saying what I could never say." I thought I was alone. I thought I was invisible. That was when I realized something. My pain was not just mine. It was familiar to more people than I ever imagined. So I built Her Voice faster. I turned it into a real platform. A place where women could post skills, offer services, start micro businesses, find mentors, and tell their stories. We launched with almost no money and no big company behind us. Just heart, just purpose, just truth. At first, it was small, a few hundred users, then a few thousand, then tens of thousands. Women started making money through the platform. A single mother in Texas found freelance clients. A retired teacher in Ohio started selling her handmade lesson tools. A young college student in California launched a bakery page. A woman in Florida found a mentor after years of feeling stuck. And every time one of them succeeded, her voice grew stronger. Then a major news outlet covered us. Then another. Then a national magazine. Then a morning show. The headline said, "Former housewife builds a national platform empowering women across America." I remember reading it and covering my mouth with both hands. Me. The same woman who had once been called worthless. The same woman who had once been told to stay out of sight. Now being called a visionary. But the biggest moment came later. One afternoon, I was invited to speak at a National Women's Innovation Summit. I stood on a stage in front of thousands of people and told my story. I did not tell it like revenge. I told it like truth. I spoke about silence, about humiliation, about rebuilding, about every woman who has ever been made to feel small. And when I finished, the room stood up. I had never heard applause like that in my life. Meanwhile, Daniel's world was falling apart in a different way. He had always depended on image. His apartment, his title, his polished life. He cared so much about looking successful that he never learned how to be decent. At work, people knew him as ambitious. At home, he was arrogant. And the more I disappeared, the more he believed he had won. He never tried to find me at first. Not really. I think he assumed I would come back when life got hard. Maybe in his mind I was too weak to survive on my own. Too simple. Too dependent. But when Her Voice started gaining attention, my name began appearing online. Then in articles. Then in interviews. At some point I heard from a friend that Daniel had seen my face on a business segment and gone completely silent. Still, I did not call him. I did not chase him. I did not need his apology to be whole. Then came the day he watched the national news. It was a regular work day. He was sitting at his office desk in the corporate building downtown. The TV in the common area flashed a breaking segment about women-led innovation in America. And there I was, my face on the screen, my voice in the clip, my platform being described as one of the fastest-growing empowerment networks in the country. The anchor said, "Emily Carter, once a full-time homemaker, is now being recognized as one of the most influential new voices in digital entrepreneurship." Influential. New voice. Digital entrepreneur. Daniel froze. According to the story later, he stood there staring at the screen like he had seen a ghost. Because in that moment, the woman he had called worthless was being praised by the entire country. And the woman he had ordered out of his life had become the woman he could never reach again. A week later, he sent me a message. Only one line. I need to talk to you. I looked at it for a long time. Then I deleted it. Not because I was angry. Not because I wanted revenge. Because some doors are not broken. They are simply closed. A few days after that, he showed up at one of my public events. I knew he would come eventually. He stood at the back of the room, wearing the same expensive confidence he used to wear at home. But this time, it looked smaller. When the event ended, he came up to me and said my name like he had not said it in years. Emily. I turned around. He said, I watched the news. I nodded once. He swallowed. I had no idea. I looked at him calmly and replied, That is the problem, Daniel. You never tried to know. He said, I was under a lot of pressure. I almost laughed, but I did not. Do you know what pressure is? I asked him. Pressure is building a life from nothing. Pressure is sleeping 4 hours a night while working 2 jobs and still believing in yourself. Pressure is being told every day that you are worthless and still finding a way to stand up. He looked ashamed, maybe for the first time. He said, I was wrong. I let the silence sit between us. Then I answered, Yes, you were. He asked me if I would ever forgive him, and I told him the truth. Forgiveness is not the same as returning. I forgive you for what you did to me, because I do not want to carry your cruelty any longer, but I am not going back. He looked like he wanted to say more, but there was nothing left to say, because I was no longer the woman who begged to be chosen. I was the woman who chose herself. Sometimes people ask me what changed me. They think it was success, or the headlines, or the applause, but that is not true. What changed me was the moment I stopped asking for permission to matter. That is when everything began. I did not become strong, because life became easier. I became strong, because life got harder, and I refused to disappear. And now, when I stand in front of women at events, I tell them this: never let someone else's voice become louder than your own. Never confuse being quiet with being weak. Never mistake someone's disrespect for your reality. You are not worthless because someone failed to see your worth. You are not invisible because someone looked through you. You are not finished because someone walked away. Sometimes the version of you that the world dismisses is the same version that will one day change it. I was a housewife. I was a quiet wife. I was a woman packing one suitcase under pressure and walking out with trembling hands. And now I am a founder, a speaker, a writer, a woman who built something lasting from the ruins of being underestimated. And if you are listening to this right now, and someone has made you feel small, I need you to hear me clearly. Stay alive in your own life. Do not shrink for anyone. Do not beg to be respected. Do not wait for someone else to hand you permission. Build, learn, work, heal, rise. Because one day, the same people who laughed at your silence may be forced to watch your name on the news. And when that day comes, you will not need revenge. Your life will already be the answer. My husband called me worthless, but the truth is, he was only describing the woman I had agreed to be while I was still afraid. The woman I became after that, she was priceless.